Well, this just in, Gonzaga star Jalen Suggs is officially declared for the NBA draft. This is not a surprise as he's even before the tournament. Suggs was considered one of the top prospects in the draft. The 19-year-old during his freshman year with the Zags averaged almost 14.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game this past season, helping the Zags, of course, to their remarkable 31-1 record overall. Of course, you'll remember Suggs from his half-court buzzer beater against UCLA, and that is what he looked like when he hopped on top of a table. And this was the way he made his announcement on social media: the most 2021 way possible with an NFT, a non-fungible token, is what it stands for. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. But what we do know is that he is officially headed to the draft. Let's welcome the host of the Eye on College Basketball podcast, the one and only Gary Parrish. Gary, I mentioned Jalen Suggs declaring for the draft. Not a surprise. What can we expect from him? I believe our latest mock has him going 4th overall to the Magic.
Yeah, I can't imagine any scenario where he's not a top 5 pick in the 2021 NBA draft. And in a draft where there's not a consensus number 1 like there was, say, when Zion Williamson was coming out of college or when Anthony Davis was coming out of college, he will be a candidate to go 1st overall in this draft. It'll come down to which franchise is selecting first and how do they feel about Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley. But undeniably, Jalen Suggs is going to be in that conversation. He entered college as a 5-star prospect, but not a consensus top 10 prospect. He exits college after 1 year at Gonzaga as a consensus top 5 prospect in this draft.
Freshman, 19 years old, as you mentioned there, a top 5 prospect, as high as 3, could even argue for 1 overall. What do you think his future looks like next year in the NBA?
I love him. He is obviously a top shelf athlete. Evidence being, what he did in the national semifinals when he blocked that shot and then made an incredible bounce pass to Timme. He was an all-state football player in high school. Could have played high major football if he chose to go that route. So athleticism off the charts. He's got good size for the position. Really understands how to play. He can see passes that other people can't see, and then he can make them as well. There are some guys who can see them but can't make them. He can see them and make them. The only question mark, I think, he's a bit of a streaky shooter. That's got to improve, especially with the way basketball is played in the NBA, in this era. But there's no reason to think it won't improve. There are no red flags here from a character issue as well. He's going to go inside the top 5, maybe number 1, and he's got an opportunity to be a franchise point guard, the face of a franchise for a long, long time.
You mentioned his teammate there, Timme. What can you tell us about him? You do not expect him to declare. Instead, you think he's going to go back to Gonzaga.
I do think ultimately he will go back to Gonzaga, whether he declares for the NBA draft or not. He might declare and go through some workouts and get some feedback, but I think what he will hear if he does that is a lot of the same stuff Luka Garza heard last offseason, which is that you need to go back to school and work on A, B, and C. He got exposed a little bit in the national championship game when Baylor kept putting him in ball screens and then taking advantage of him. That's not something that he'll ever be the best at, but it is something he can improve at. And so I never, tell young people what they have to do. He's got good options either way, and he can do whatever he wants to do. But ultimately, I do believe he will probably be back at Gonzaga, likely be the preseason National Player of the Year, and perhaps the best player on a team that'll be picked in the preseason by a lot of people to win the national championship.
And we're talking about Jalen Suggs declaring for the NBA draft, but of course we saw Gonzaga all the way up, almost so close to 32-0, going undefeated. So we talked about Jalen Suggs officially declared. You think Timme will return. What about Corey Kispert there? He's a senior, so technically he could with everything that's gone on with the season, but you don't believe so.
Yeah, Amanda, you're smart to point that out, that, the seniors, every senior in the country has an opportunity to come back and play another year of college basketball. A, if they want, and B, if their school wants them back. So Corey Kispert, could in theory come back, but there's no reason to think that he's going to. This is a young man who's accomplished just about everything you can accomplish at the collegiate level other than win a national championship. And given that he is a projected top 20 pick, according to most, there's literally millions of dollars waiting on him. I'll be shocked if Corey Kispert isn't in the NBA draft and will stay in the NBA draft and then be a first-round pick who, again, signs a guaranteed contract worth millions of dollars. And then he carves out a role, I believe, as a knockdown shooter in the NBA. And as we were talking about earlier, there's never been a time in the NBA where shooting is more important. Corey Kispert, if nothing else, should be able to add that.
Gary, according to the odds, this Gonzaga team looking to be just incredible again. And today they got the #1 recruit in the country, Chet Holmgren, committing to Gonzaga. What does this team look like next season?
Well, they could be terrific. Some of this is based on Drew Timme coming back to school, Andrew Nembhard coming back to school, but the Zags have secured commitments from 2 5-star prospects. I mean, it's wild to think about. 2 years ago, Gonzaga, for all of its success, had never enrolled a 5-star prospect out of high school. And in the past 2 recruiting classes, they've enrolled 3. Jalen Suggs in the class of 2020, Hunter Salas in the class of 2021, and then today, Chet Holmgren in the class of 2021. And Holmgren, of course, is the consensus #1 player in America. He's a 7-foot center, real rim protector, but on the offensive end, he plays on the perimeter. He can bounce it, he can drive it, he can shoot it. He truly is a unique talent. And so when you pair, at least in theory, Hunter Salas and Chet Holmgren with a core of Drew Timme and Andrew Nembhard, you've got a team that's going to be in everybody's preseason top 5. And like you accurately pointed out, in Vegas right now is the odds-on favorite to be the 2022 national champion. There will be skeptics that Gonzaga can actually do this as a program until the Zags actually do. But I have believed for a while, if you keep building teams that are capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, eventually you will win 6 games in the NCAA tournament. Gonzaga is going to win a national championship someday. It's just a matter of when, not if. And the win could come as soon as next season.
Well, especially if you keep getting those 5-star recruits. They were plus 800 before his commitment. Chet Holmgren there. They are now plus 700, as you saw on that graphic. Gary Parrish, thanks so much for hopping on. Jalen Suggs declaring for the draft. The draft now just a couple months away, July 29th. So this summer, you can hear much more from our good friend Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander on their amazing podcast, the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Make sure to download and follow.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.